So thank you so much for all that discussion. Now I'm going to tamp it down. No more chatting. Now we're going to focus up. We're going to be professional. Eyes over here. That's right. That's right. So for our second to last, what is that, penultimate?
Yes.
Oh my God, see? Reilly has actually got 3 masters in English literature, policy, smartness. She'll tell you all about this. I may have exaggerated by 1. Anyways, so she knows about words like penultimate. For our second to last presentation today, I'm really excited to bring in a duo. So Reilly and Vojtech both are with OpenMedia.ca. You may be familiar with them because they have been the leading campaigners around open access on the internet, copyright, and everything awesome. Basically, if you want to use the internet so it works for you as opposed to for corporations, these are your champions right here. So tell us, what's your community like right now? What does it look like?
Well, we have about 700,000 people on our email list, so that's one of the biggest lists in Canada. It's a lot of people. It's becoming increasingly American and international. We start to recognize that our work is very affected by things like international trade deals, so we've started making our work more global in scope. So that's been creating some new challenges. We won't get into those too much today, but basically we have a really big list, and we need to figure out how to manage that in a way that's still about relationships.
Cool. And Vojtech here goes deep into the data. So what are you wrestling with right now?
Well, it is trying to understand why people are with us. So when our list grows and that growth is sort of slowing down, how do we face that and how do we respond to it as an organization? That's my challenge.
So today they're going to sort of bring all those pieces together and use the model of the engagement pyramid to talk about the many ways they are working with their community and creating opportunities for ownership and participation. I'm going to get out of the way because actually they're doing fascinating, amazing work. And of course, they're good people. I'm huge fans. So give it up. It's Reilly and Vojtech, and they're awesome.
Okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So thanks so much for being here with us today. Yeah, Vojtech and I are from Open Media. We have Josh here too. He's our campaigns coordinator, and Glenn, who does a lot of community engagement work with us. And we run mass mobilization campaigns to keep the internet open and affordable and to preserve your rights to privacy and free expression online. So we do that largely through online campaigning. Which can sometimes be seen as a little bit of a kind of slacktivist art, where we just get people to do things that are super easy and that don't really mean a lot and don't really resemble the kind of traditional advocacy that we're used to. So our challenge has been trying to make that advocacy really effective and also trying to make sure that as a couple of essentially paid activists, we don't become completely disconnected from the community that we're meant to serve, follow, and lead. And that we are really in touch with what people actually want to see from us. So part of the way that we've tried to systematize that kind of process of going from just having someone's email address to doing the kind of really highly involved, highly engaged stuff that Linda was talking about this morning is through a model called the engagement pyramid that tries to kind of break it down and systematize it. So we're starting to try to think through how we can actually look at people in our organization as part of one cohesive whole, but having really different ways of engaging with us, making sure that all those ways are really meaningful. So this is the kind of classic engagement pyramid. It was developed by Groundwire. You can find a lot of stuff about it online if you're interested. You can see it goes from observing at the lowest level, where most of your people will be clustered, all the way right up to owning. It's a model that's used in lots of different organizations, so you can really adapt it for your own needs. This is one that was for a library. So you can see they've thought about people who just use the study space, all the way up to people who do advocacy or partnership with the library. And at Open Media, we've really taken this and we've tried to adapt it for our own needs. So as I said, we have an email list of about 700,000 people. A lot of those people fall into the category of observing, where our goal with them is just to inspire initial and repeat contact with our organization. Their awareness of us is the major factor that makes them observers in our pyramid, and their actions are things like visiting our website or maybe coming to an event. On the second level up, where we're trying to move people, is endorsing. So there we want to earn enough of their trust to be able to secure an endorsement of our work. Their trust and their time are the major factors in their engagement with us, and their actions include things like petition signing or sharing. So they're comfortable with the idea that their name is going to be connected to our work. That's already a big thing. One level up from that is contributing. So that's where people are deepening their commitment to our mission and to our work. Their time, their money, and for us, their insight are the major factors. Their actions might include donating. They might include contributing input to crowdsourced policies or submissions. So this is where open media is very unique. Not many other organizations look at the contributing level as a place where people are contributing insight. So I'll talk a little bit more about how we actually do that. So we're fighting a trade deal called the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It contains a lot of internet censorship provisions that really shouldn't be in a trade deal. It's being negotiated in a very anti-democratic way. There's really no citizen consultation. So we built a tool that asks people at that contributing level of our pyramid to tell the negotiators of the TPP what they would like them to hear, what kinds of things matter to them. So it's a lot of things like, I'm a teacher, and under the TPP, it would be much more difficult for me to share electronic materials. And then we take those comments and we sneak into the negotiating room, in this case, just into the lobby of the hotel, and we broadcast them on the wall to try and get their voices heard in the process. So these people who've submitted their comments to us, they're really thoughtful. There's about 15,000 of them. We consider them to be contributing. They're not contributing money, but they're contributing their insights about why the TPP is going to be harmful for internet users. Then we take all those comments that those people have submitted to us that we've gone and projected onto the wall or passed around on an iPad inside of the negotiating room. And we did content analysis of these, and we used the comments to build what we call a drag and drop crowdsourcing tool, where people can actually say what their priorities are for copyright law, and then they can rank some of the ideas that people have shared with us and with the negotiators about ways that copyright should actually look different in the digital age. So these are some ways that we've tried to make that contributing level about guiding our work, giving us really meaningful insight, and creating kind of a plan from our community that we, as their advocates, can be held accountable to. On level 4, that's where we're looking at developing people's potential to lead others in our campaigns. So the key factors are that people at this level engage others, and they have a deep understanding of our campaigns. So people on this level, they become share leaders. I'm going to tell you what that is in a second. They also write letters to the editor, so we have a tool that allows people to write letters to the editor of their local paper about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Or they join things like an under-the-hood internet town hall. So we had a kind of Google Hangout where people could learn some of the really deep details about this campaign. So if you become a share leader, what that means is you've used our crowdsourcing drag and drop tool that I showed you on the previous slide. You've said what you think copyright should look like in a digital age. Probably looks very different from what's in the TPP. Almost nobody who takes our survey says that they think copyright should last for 100 years after the death of the creator. That's what's currently proposed in this trade deal. So you've done you've taken this crowdsourcing survey, and then at the end of it, you're given a unique URL. And if you share that with other people, you can join this leaderboard. So the people at the top of this leaderboard, the share leaders, are people who've had many other people take the survey using their own unique URL. And when the survey wraps in about a month or so, there's going to be a prize for these guys. So we're looking at ways that, in purely digital ways, we can actually empower others to lead. At level 5, we have owning. And that looks pretty different for us, especially for some reasons that Vojtech's going to get into. But for us, the way that we've designed our pyramid, at level 5, you actually feel like you own Open Media's work and its mission. So you have an organizational, not a campaign-specific commitment. So you understand Open Media as an organization that's independent from an individual campaign to fight the TPP or fight Bill C-30 or protect your privacy online. You get the kind of mission of our work. So people at that level, they've joined what we call a digital action team. They might volunteer in person, or they've become a monthly donor, which is a really significant commitment to Open Media. So this is a kind of representation of this pyramid for one of our campaigns, the one that I've just been talking about on free expression or the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And one of the things that you'll notice that's super important here is we have a staff member's name beside each of the different groups in our pyramid of engagement. So somebody is tagged to actually figure out who those people are and what the next steps are going to be for them to move up. So this is super important to actually being able to implement this model. looking at who's responsible. But the thing is, what I've presented to you right now requires a fair amount of tracking. So you actually do need to be paying attention to where people are moving. So this is a representation of the growth in the campaign from one week to the next in the month of September. So it shows where people moved on the pyramid. And if you don't track that, then the model is obviously much less effective. So this is just a representation of where we went from September to November. You can see there's been some really significant growth, like 100,000 or about 90,000 in endorsing. As of May 8th, we had 299,000 people endorsing, about 42,000 people contributing, 12,000 leading, and about 3,000 owning. So the numbers are quite significant. One of the issues is that what I've shown you so far is actually just a triangle, right? But Open Media works on more than just the free expression issue. We work on several different issues at once. So this is where we get into, I mean, this has already been a level of complexity, but we're about to get into like where it gets really, really interesting and really cool and sophisticated, and where we actually start to see this become a pyramid or a mountain. So I'm going to pass it over to Vojtech for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Reilly. So as Reilly mentioned, we did a great job, I think, with sort of trying to implement the pyramid scheme onto one of our campaigns pertaining to free expression. But as she did also mention, we are working on more issues. What that meant was that we had to implement the very same sort of scheme onto our other issues. So we are working on access issues as well as privacy. Now the key point here that we've learned is one of the sort of one of the guiding principles in establishing those additional pyramids was that all the levels are comparable on all three pyramids. What it means that if someone takes a level 2 action on either of their three pillars, they are sort of on the same type of engagement. What you're tracking then, what your tracking focuses, it's not the supporters, it's the type of a supporter and the type of an action that they take. Now, depending on your organization, you may end up with 7, 12, 15 pyramids, who knows, depending on how many actions you run. So how do you then implement this engagement scheme onto your entire organization? You soon realize that if you have those pyramids set up in a comparable way where each level sort of corresponds and you have those types of engagement charted out on all of those campaigns, you realize that as people ascend the pyramid, whichever one they ascend, they're all sort of moving towards the center. What you then end up with having is the most highly and the most valuable supporters are naturally moving towards the center. They are participating in higher barrier actions, donating, filling out the crowdsource tool. That takes time. That's participation. People are investing their time and money. And that is why it is important to establish what we call the core. So the core is demarcated, and we've sort of been, we define our core as levels 4 and 5, so that's level leading and owning. We include one-time donors, volunteers, people who dedicate their time, people who are very passionate. Why we try to sort of separate them out of the rest is because they deserve a different treatment. Those are people who are much more likely to donate. How likely, I'll talk about in a bit. And they're also, now that when they enter that zone, they are much more likely to receive communication from us. The communication is also much more personal, and that's why it's important. Now, the resemblance to a radioactive symbol is purely accidental, but if you want to, explain it to avoid confusion when you explain it to your colleagues, I suggest you print it out and make a model as, if I can just show it out, that actually doesn't look like a radioactive symbol, but rather as a, well, that's the thing, it's no longer a pyramid. Now we are dealing with a cone, or a mountain, or however you would like to talk about it. And so we'd like to leave you with a few lessons that we've learned over this process. Things that took us a long time to figure out, but lessons that we are quite excited and happy to share with you. First of all, we can't emphasize enough how important it is to define your core. When you are trying to ask people for very high barrier actions, become monthly allies, volunteer, you all know that you are burning your list with all those people who unsubscribe because they are not ready for that kind of ask. That's why people who are in the core exhibit 21 times higher chances of becoming monthly allies than people who are outside of that core, on average. What that means is that when you email those people with the monthly ask, not only they don't really unsubscribe because they are so invested in the organization, but they're also much more likely to become allies. So that's the thing. And what the 20 versus 50% number means is that many of you are focusing on how to grow your list. And since we launched this campaign, or since we launched this model in December of last year, since then our list grew by 20%. But our core grew by 50%, which means that we've been really trying to focus our attention on how to move people into the core. And we've been quite succeeding, because it does pay off. It does pay off quite significantly. Even in regard to the survey that Reilly talked about, people who take the survey versus the people who actually shared the survey and participated are on the leaderboard. Those people on the leaderboard have 6 times higher chances of becoming donors and getting more and more engaged in the organization. Now, one thing that sort of is implied in the multi-pyramidal structure is that people can move around. So you engage people, they enter your list around issue pertaining to, let's say, privacy or free expression. But then they may be suddenly interested in going to a campaign about privacy, and suddenly they take action on a different pillar, and now you have a situation where you have a 4-directional movement on the pyramid. So not only are people moving up on the one pyramid where they were, let's say it's free expression, so they took a survey, then they shared it, then they donated to this campaign, so that's the upward movement. They can now also be bridged, as we call it, being bridged onto other pyramids. Now, bridging turns out to be quite a good thing to do. Because when you look at the sort of mountain structure, think about it less as a pyramid, but more as a mountain, what you end up with is you should not be forcing people to ascend in that sort of hardest way up. You should allow them to choose whether they want to go up or perhaps around. So they may not be ready to become donors on one pillar, but when they explore the rest of the mountain, I don't know if the metaphor even makes sense, but the idea is that there is a sort of a horizontal movement. Finally, you should allow people to fall off your pyramid or to sort of disappear from there. It should not be a stagnant thing. That criteria for us is people are inactive within the last 2 months, then we stop counting them as being on the pyramid. They may re-enter at some point if they take a new action, open an email, but if they don't, then we've lost them. And a third thing, iterate. Focus on what you can accomplish, start with one pyramid, experiment. Every organization has different needs, depending on whatever your issue is. You may have to modify the levels. We had to eliminate one of the levels. It was the following one because it simply didn't make sense for us in our online list management and environment. Once you figure that out, you can apply it across the whole organization. And the third one is that's where we are currently operating. The purpose of that is to try to track the different types of movements on the engagement pyramid. And so you realize that although you're here to talk about the engagement pyramid, the idea of engagement is less of a sort of structural list management where you're trying to sort of push people into specific campaigns. It's much more of a journey that you offer to your supporters to take. You shouldn't be forcing them, you should be allowing them as many options for engaging as possible. And so the question then becomes, what might your engagement thing look like? Thank you very much.
Well, you guys have set a world record. You still have like 2.5 minutes left. And so you should ask some questions because you know it's going to get people this far in the room with you. So I don't take advantage of it.
Yeah, so one quick point about iterating. I mean, when we first started trying to model the pyramid, we tried to have all 6 levels. We were going to track people who saw something on Facebook. We were going to try to track people who visited our website but didn't engage further. Those were all good ideas that we'll hopefully implement at some point. But when we looked at doing something that was at that level of complexity at that time, it just wasn't going to be possible. But instead of scrapping the whole approach, we just started with what we could do and then we built more onto it and iterated. So that's really, really important. What can you do right now, even if it's just have 2 levels, 3, and start looking at those. Yeah?
Why is this all you're tracking? Is this like a stab of 1,000,000?
It's all Vojtech.
Full time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Outsourcing options for dumb charities?
But if you're going to get serious about this, you need at least a half-time person devoted to it. I know, but it really pays off. So if you look at our email deliverability, just from Vojtech saying that we should let people leave the pyramid, so we shouldn't keep trying to email them when clearly it was getting flagged as spam, you can see our action rates have already improved really dramatically just from listening to the data intelligence that you brought into the room. Yeah. And we're a staff of only 10, and we prioritize this.
Are there templates or basic tools you can access or device?
There's a Groundwire still has some resources about the pyramid of engagement and their definitions of it. If you Google like the pyramid, you'll find them, defining what it is.
Yeah, but the point is that what we ended up with, that sort of scheme that was on the second last slide, that really is particular to our organization's needs, and that's what we needed to identify. We realized that for us it's really important to know when people take action on more than one pillar. So if they have, done free expression, for us to be able to bridge them, because for example, the core, we define that if you take actions across all three pillars, you automatically enter the core, and you become sort of that creme de la creme of our list. Now, we grew that group by 50%, as I said, from Christmas, but we also increased the number of conversions in terms of donations and become monthly donors, because we did much more focus on those people, rather than on people who may not yet be ready to be sort of that high up. There was a question.
How much do your supporters and donors know about where they are on the pyramid, or at all?
Yeah, well, at the moment they don't really. This is very much internal. But actually, as we speak, we're trying to develop a way that would allow supporters to know sort of what the next step is. So let's say you get a petition, you fill out a petition, and then you're on the thank you page. Usually you're asked to share something. That is a level of engagement, but usually doesn't push you really high up. You're perhaps asked to donate. What we're trying to figure out is what is the optimal way of pointing people in the right direction, where it says, well, you did the survey, or you took the action, you're obviously a percent issue. Well, actually, not only you're stopping something that's happening, you also are being proactive and use a tool that's very much engaging, that allows you to voice an opinion that pushes you up the level of the pyramid.
Yeah.
We can do that. It's hard to do.
If you're in the digital action team or you're a monthly donor, so if you're in those only categories, you've communicated in that way.
And really,
the other stuff,
you should become a monthly donor. It's so easy.
you should become a monthly donor. Yeah. But if you're in the other levels, yeah, we're just figuring out how do we provide paths.
So I hate to shut this down because actually I think this is basically the most important discussions you can have in any kind of advocacy organization. But I have to end it, and I'm really sorry. But surely there's a way we can learn more from you guys. There must be like courses you're offering, trainings, workshops. There must be a way.
Well, the next thing that we're doing is Camp Roots at the Museum of Vancouver on the 23rd and 24th of May. And we're going to get a little bit deeper about the relative value of moving people up one issue versus bridging them between. So we'll be a little bit deeper than this. But otherwise, these conversations start to need to be pretty tailored for your organization. So if that's something that people are interested in, then you can get in touch with us. We'll talk from there.
Yeah, thank you so much.